Francesca Albanese is the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory. Since her appointment in May 2022, she's become something of an icon of the pro-Palestine movement. But her fierce, unapologetic advocacy for Palestinian human rights and criticism of Israel's genocide in Gaza has inevitably drawn the ire of Israel and its many powerful global outriders. Now, government ministers in Austria, the Czech Republic, France, Germany and Italy are calling for her resignation, accusing her of anti-Semitism, not for the first time. It comes after comments she made at the Al Jazeera forum last week.
Instead of stopping Israel, most of the world has armed, given it political excuses, political sheltering, economic and financial support. We now see that we as a humanity have a common enemy.
Now, look, I can see why some people might have something to object to there, but I do think there is also something about Israel's attack on Gaza which is diminishing of all of our humanity. I would be happy to say that. A country committing genocide is whatever its ethnic or religious makeup, a common enemy of humanity, not all people or anything, but just of humanity as a notion by definition. But look, wait. Those of you watching this rather than listening, you may have noticed that very clunky cut towards the end of the clip. Now, that wasn't your eyes deceiving you. It's because UN Watch, the group that put the video out, did indeed heavily doctor it. Here's an unedited video of her comments. It will repeat some of what you heard in the last clip, of course, but we think it's important for context.
The fact that instead of stopping Israel, most of the world has armed, given it political excuses, political sheltering, economic and financial support. This is a challenge. The fact that most of the media in the Western world has been amplifying the pro-apartheid, the genocidal narrative is a challenge. And at the same time, here also lays the opportunity. Because if international law has been stabbed in the heart, it's also true that never before the global community has seen the challenges that we all face. We who do not control large amounts of financial capitals, algorithms, and weapons. We now see that we as a humanity have a common enemy.
So obviously, the common enemy of humanity Albanese is referring to isn't Israel per se, but those who, quote, control large amounts of financial capital, algorithms, and weapons. That is obviously true. And unless you are yourself an anti-Semite who thinks only Jews control financial capital, algorithms, and weapons, it's impossible to read Albanese's comments as other than a critique of an international system that ties profit to violence. Israel and its Western allies quite clearly sit at the heart of that. Now, UN Watch, the group behind the doctored video, has a long history of accusing the UN of anti-Israel bias. But what's truly extraordinary is that ministers from 5 European countries saw fit to publicly call for Albanese's resignation on grounds of anti-Semitism without even checking the source material. We really do have idiots in charge. Amnesty International hit back at the ministers, saying this in a statement. It's reprehensible that ministers in Australia, Czechia, France, Germany and Italy have attacked the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territory, Francesca Albanese, based on a deliberately truncated video to misrepresent and gravely misconstrue her messages, as is clear from watching her original address in its entirety. The ministers that have spread disinformation must act beyond merely deleting their comments on social media, as some have done. They must publicly apologise and retract any calls for Francesca Albanese's resignation. Their governments must also investigate how this disinformation happened with a view to preventing such situations. Amnesty International and Albanese herself responded to the smear on French television channel France 24.
I challenge everyone to find what I'm accused of saying, that Israel is the enemy of the humanity. I've never said that. I've said something very different, but of course it's been manipulated so as to corroborate the defamation against me. What I've said is very different, and I was in a panel, not with Hamas leaders. This is yet again another distortion. I was invited by Al Jazeera to speak at a panel composed of jurists, including former prosecutors of the ICC, Fatou Bensouda, and I was honored to be among them, frankly. And what I said was, of course, commenting on the genocide and blaming not just Israel, but the system. It's the system that has armed the genocide, that has sheltered genocide from accountability, and has also profited from the genocide. It's this system that concerns much beyond, a reality much beyond Israel, as I've often said, that is the enemy, that is our common enemy.
Last question.
Maybe it's too complicated. It's too sophisticated for the simplistic minds of those who crush everything into anti-Semitism in order to shelter Israel from accountability.
Here's a little tip for whoever edited that video, whoever from UN Watch is responsible for that. Donald Trump is trying to get $1 billion from the BBC for less. Maybe look into it, Francesca. Despite evidence to the contrary, as well as Albanese and Amnesty's protestations, France and Germany have doubled down in their calls for her resignation. This is a report on the French government's reasons for sticking to its guns.
Now, I just want to add here that despite Francesca Albanese clarifying her position, as we heard to us, the French Foreign Ministry is standing by its position that she must resign. The French Foreign Minister said her comments add to what he called a long list of scandalous positions. He accused her of justifying the attacks of 7th October in Israel, and he accused her of comparing Israel to the Third Reich. So France is standing by that position of her to resign. And Germany, just today, Thursday, has also joined France in that stance, also calling for her removal as UN Special Rapporteur.
It's interesting that so many of those accusations there are ones that are pushed by UN Watch as well. I mean, I haven't looked into them all. I can't say for sure which are true, which aren't, but I do know that those belong to a list which is published on UN Watch's website. Kieran, what do you make of this? I mean, I said we really are led by idiots in that piece. Is it just that they're idiots, or is there something more to it?
Idiots and living in a repetitive simulation. It's old wine in new bottles, Stephen. It's old wine in new bottles. If someone, the past 10 years have shown us anything, it's, well, several things, but one of them is if someone is a good communicator on Palestine and has some degree of power in relation to the question of Palestine, it is practically an iron law that sooner or later they will be accused of anti-Semitism. And a few weeks ago, we were talking about Andrew Marr. We were talking about Andrew Marr in respect to Epstein and saying that despite all of the evidence, completely disregarding the possibility that he's an asset of Israel and saying it's Russia. And I said on this show that he is incapable of doing his job. With Albanese, it's the perfect opposite of that. She's incapable of not doing her job. And for that, of course, she must be punished. It's extremely difficult. That's why I have so much respect for her. Among many other things, it's so difficult to work within the establishment, but not for the establishment. It's such a difficult thing to do. I mean, look at her title, right? UN Special Rapporteur on the Situation of Human Rights in the Palestinian Occupied Territories. A bit of a mouthful. Of course, occupied territories includes Gaza. Imagine what a colossal waste of time and money Francesca Albanese would be if she didn't say and do what she's doing. I have enormous respect for her, but really, ultimately, in a perfect world, she would just be doing her job. Her job is to argue for, advocate for, and record abuses of or the upholding of Palestinian human rights in the West Bank and in Gaza. That's her job. And she does it incredibly well, simply because she works within the establishment, but not for the establishment. And again, as I say, she must be destroyed for that. Final thing I'll say about her is that what a contrast with our own human rights lawyer, Prime Minister. She's a human rights lawyer by training. But unlike Keir Starmer, she is clearly somebody who believes in what she trained in. And again, for that, she must be punished.
Yeah. I was thinking, actually, as you were speaking about Wes Streeting's revelations of his text messages with Peter Mandelson. And, there he is saying to Peter Mandelson during a time at which the government was quite resistant to disciplining Israel in any sort of way, that Israel was obviously committing war crimes in front of our eyes. And you sort of think about these people now trying to have Francesca Albanese sacked. No doubt they also know that Israel was committing war crimes in front of our eyes. And yet it's, you know, a doctored video of Francesca Albanese that causes more heat than, those repeated breaches of international law.